Hello and welcome to a Sunday edition of Always College Football. I'm your host, Greg McElroy. It is Sunday, September 29th, and we appreciate you getting the show wherever it is you get the show, whether that's on the ESPN College Football YouTube channel or if you're here with us via the podcast, please like, rate, subscribe, all the great stuff. What an incredible Saturday of college football action. You're probably sitting there looking at my backdrop here where I'm at. I am in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I did the unthinkable yesterday. 2 college football games in one day. One of the great experiences of my life, I might add. I am a diehard, obsessed college football fan. You guys know that. If you've been with me on this show in the past, you know that I just live for Saturdays in the fall. It's the best. But to do a game in Oxford, Mississippi at 11 o'clock local, only to drive 2.5 hours from Oxford, Mississippi to Tuscaloosa, Alabama for one of the best college football games I've ever witnessed was just an absolute treat, all right? So I will admit that the amount of college football consumed yesterday watching the television was maybe at an all-time low, but as a viewer, as an experience, it was one of the best I've had. I will say this, though, credit to SiriusXM College Sports Channel 84 because I was listening to Learfield's mix so I could listen to all the different calls of the games as I was driving from Oxford to Tuscaloosa. So shout out to SiriusXM Channel 84. That made things a lot easier for me. So I just want to make sure that they get their love as well. Let's start with one of the games, probably one of the best games I think I've probably ever seen. And that was Bama, Georgia. Located at Bryant-Denny Stadium, about 300 yards, thereabouts, to my northwest. What an incredible game. To see the ebbs and flows in this game and to watch it, frankly, with a partisan crowd and me being part of that partisan crowd, made it very, very dramatic and very, very entertaining. Now, here's what I loved about the game. One, Alabama's start. Oh my goodness, man, to start like that. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a team come out of the gates quite like that, right? The offensive plan with some of the alignment stuff, some of the formation stuff, leveraging the defense over and over and over again, consistently getting hat on a hat in the run game, hitting big plays downfield. Receivers, a group that we had questions about coming into the season. Receivers making great plays. I mean, the offensive and defensive performance, turning over Georgia, the offensive and defensive performance there in the first quarter of that football game was mind-blowing. And I don't think I've seen Georgia on their heels like that. I mean, in a really long time. Look, Georgia's had games where they've gotten beat. Sure. Since Kirby Smart took over in 2016, there have been games where they've been beat. But I've never seen them so wobbly out of the gates. And that was in large part due to Alabama's execution. I thought the plan, both offensively and defensively, was phenomenal. Really incredible. And then Alabama seemingly went into a kind of relaxed, chill, all right, we're good, exhale type of mode. And next thing you know, Georgia's continuing to throw haymakers. I mean, right out of the haymakers, one after another. They get the run game going. And if not for a pretty significant moment there to give Bama the edge, to take them from 28 to 30 to 7, and a couple of turnovers that really were kind of the difference in the story of the game, then it might have been a different outcome. But Georgia just continued to throw punches, and that's the sign of an incredible program, right? Okay, they came up on the losing end. No doubt about it. They were not the better team last night. They had no business winning the game. They almost did, but they really had no business doing it. But here's what I would say about Georgia. That is a proud program that continued to fight. There were moments when people I was talking to in the games like, do you think Georgia will shut it down? Like, they don't have to have this one now in the 12-team playoff era. Like, do you think that they'll just put the backups in and just cruise to the finish? It's like, absolutely not. If you know Kirby, if you know Georgia, they're going to go and continue to fight until this thing is completely out of reach. And if they lose by 100, they lose by 100. It is what it is. But they were going to go down swinging. They did. And they got the run game. They got ATN going a little bit. I mean, it was one of the crazier things to see things shift in an instant, see things just completely flip on their head. And all of a sudden, it was Georgia who could do no wrong. And you had Arian Smith, you had Dylan Bell, you had Carson Beck. Felt like they couldn't really miss. Dylan Bell was amazing. There were missed opportunities, I thought, on both sides. I thought Dylan Bell really showed that, hey, man, this guy's a well-rounded wide receiver. But the best players on the field in the game last night were Jalen Milroe, who was outrageously good. Probably the best he's ever been by a mile. Running it, throwing it, athleticism, tight-roping the sideline, being able to make guys miss and getting the ball out quickly. His anticipation when throwing the football is elevated so significantly. And that doesn't really show up on television, but when you see it in an all-22 setting and you see it in person, you see it and how quickly he's throwing the football. There might be a guy up front along the offensive line that whiffs. It's no problem because Jalen might be able to beat him with the throw. His advancement from last year is just on a completely different level. So he's playing phenomenal and was the reason why they won the game last night. Ryan Williams, to be a kid that is supposed to be playing high school football right now, to see how strong he is after the catch, see how talented he is as the ball's in the air, how he tracks it, how he sees it, tipping things up to himself and catching it. He finished the game with nearly 200 yards of total offense. It was an incredible game with incredible players on both sides. And I cannot tell you how impressed I am with the offensive skill at Alabama. Just another level. But I also am equally impressed with the resilience of Georgia, how they refused to shut it down, how they made some adjustments in the second half and found a little balance and created some big plays off that balance. But I think when you look at it, man, that was just a game for the ages. Two heavyweights going at it, the two best programs in the sport. And to see it in person was just the thrill of a lifetime. It really was. Great win for Alabama. How does it impact Georgia? How does it impact Alabama? We don't know. We've never been in the 12-team playoff era. We've never been in an expanded conference era. We've never been in an SEC era where there isn't divisions. I don't know how it impacts Georgia. I think their bounce back was significant, so maybe they'll carry some momentum into the Auburn game next week. But either way, just an incredible performance on both sides and wild, just absolutely wild. Other things of significance yesterday. We'll go to a top 10 team losing at home. On the call for this one, alongside Sean McDonough and Molly McGrath, Ole Miss, and where we thought they were improved, right? All offseason, we're sitting there evaluating Ole Miss and saying, hey, the difference between Ole Miss from 2024 and the previous years that Lane Kiffin is running the show is really along the lines of scrimmage. Okay, they went and got Walter Nolan. They went and got Princely Umanmielen. They went and got other difference makers along the front and in the front seven defensively. And they also added 4 guys in the portal offensively along the offensive line. So this group's different along the lines of scrimmage. They're more capable along the lines of scrimmage. And that wasn't the case against Kentucky. Now, Kentucky came into this game battle-tested, weathered, calloused, whatever word you want to use to describe what Kentucky went through in the first 4 weeks of the season is up to you. But this group came in, and they were the more physical football team from start to finish. Okay, Ole Miss jumped on them early, right down the field, scored a touchdown, no problem. Sitting there thinking this is a bad matchup for Kentucky. They have too much speed. They have too much tempo. Kentucky's not crazy deep, so they're going to have a tough time going against a team that won't allow them to substitute. So they're going to get worn down. Well, after the first drive, Ole Miss really couldn't find a whole lot. And so much credit needs to be given to Kentucky's defensive line because that was an absolutely incredible performance. It really was. To see what that defensive line was able to do in limiting what Jackson Dart was able to do, and on the outside too. They're without their best corner in Maxwell Hairston. no problem whatsoever. Put in a true freshman, put in a couple other guys, rotated 3 guys at corner, and all 3 were up to the task because those 2 wide receivers and Juice Wells and Trey Harris, you're going to have your hands full when you got to take care of those two guys. It is a beast to have to play against those guys. But guess what? Those corners were up to the task. Not only did they force a fumble of Trey Harris, but they did a pretty good job, especially on the outside, of tackling in the open field and making sure that there weren't a lot of yards after catch. So I thought Kentucky was outstanding yesterday. They deserved to win the game. And that 4th and 8 call by Mark Stoops to throw a go ball, a low percentage throw on 4th and 8, but they were getting press man. They had to take a shot. They hadn't taken the shot really all day. They throw it to Barryon Brown, who'd been kind of quiet throughout the first 3 quarters of the game. He catches it, bursts down the sidelines, set up the game-winning score. Just an incredible game. I know people are blaming the kicker stuff. Like, what do you want him to do? Make a 49-yarder to tie the game? Yeah, okay, that'd be great. In the NFL, you probably make it. But 49 yards in college is certainly not a chip shot. So credit to Kentucky, but Ole Miss is human. No doubt about it, especially along both lines of scrimmage. I think they're human, and they could have their hands full here in the weeks to come. I don't know if I'm going to go as far as to say they lose a bunch of games, but that went yesterday based on my perception of Ole Miss. Yesterday I thought they were a playoff team. Now I'm not so sure because there's some more games coming up here in the coming weeks that will be very difficult for Ole Miss. They have Georgia coming to town. They have to go and play against LSU in a couple weeks. They still have to play against South Carolina next week. South Carolina's a handful along the defensive line. So I think Ole Miss, their playoff hopes are a little bit shakier today. Let's move to the Big 12. Now, the Big 12, not surprised by a couple outcomes. Kansas State beating Oklahoma State the way they beat them, not crazy, surprising. Thought Oklahoma State had a significant disadvantage along the line of scrimmage defensively. Thought there would be a lot of opportunities for Kansas State in the run game to be able to create things for their 3-headed monster. DJ Giddens going for nearly 200. Avery Johnson having 5 touchdowns, keeping Ollie Gordon in check again. Ollie Gordon this year is averaging just 3.5 yards a carry against FBS opponents. Think about that. Ollie Gordon, the Doak Walker Award winner from a year ago, is averaging just 3.5 per carry. So that's not crazy surprising the way that game went. Kansas State handled their business and won the game convincingly. How about BYU? BYU is a team that we did not talk at all about in the preseason relative to Big 12 championship hopes. Well, they sit there now at 5-0, and they beat down Baylor rather convincingly. They go on the road. They were up 31-14 entering the 4th quarter. And while it didn't look great down the stretch, that was a theme yesterday, it felt like, by the way. Teams that had a comfortable lead, or at least it felt comfortable for a minute, only to fast forward a couple minutes of game time, and next thing you know, you're in a good spot if you are on the opposition because you're taking shots and you have momentum, and what was a game that was at one point out of hand is now back in your favor. So very impressed by BYU. How about Iowa State? Maybe they're the Big 12 favorite. They're 4-0, shut out Houston, and I don't think they're a team that's necessarily going to wow you with their flash. I don't think they're a team that's going to wow you with their athleticism and skill, but, man, they're sound as can be. Cam Rising misses his 3rd game. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with the injury report. Everyone seemingly thinks he's good to go on a week-to-week basis and doesn't play. So he's out. Isaac Wilson's in. Did not play very well. He had to throw 40 passes in the game against Arizona, and it was not that they put too much on his plate, but it was not a good performance whatsoever. Arizona being able to get that win, 23-10, crazy. And the DBs of Arizona, tons of respect for what we saw from them. Because what I look at Utah, and I look at how they've been able to kind of create balance, run the football. They've been really good in the first few weeks, not having to rely too heavily on the pass game. Well, Arizona held up along the line of scrimmage, did a great job in the back end of making things really uncomfortable. but to have your freshman quarterback drop back and throw it 40 times is crazy. Not a good situation for Utah. So a big and surprising win there by Arizona. And then you move to Colorado. This is one I got completely wrong. I thought Colorado was going to struggle in the trenches in this one. I thought UCF would come out and be the aggressor. I figured that UCF would have this game circled. They didn't. They played terrible. Kind of a sloppy game at times. But I thought it was really, really impressive how Colorado was able to come out, and they were not flawless either. That's what I like most about the performance is Colorado did not play anywhere near their perfect game. It'd be one thing if Colorado played perfect and found a way to go on the road and win the game convincingly. Not the case. Colorado played a very human game, but Shedeur had an amazing day. You also had an incredible performance again from Travis Hunter, which should come as no surprise at this point. It's like rinse and repeat. The guy is just amazing every single time. They destroyed UCF on their home field. Now they're sitting there at 4-1 with a really good chance to make things kind of interesting in the Big 12, just given where everything is in that conference. Some weeks teams are up, some weeks teams are down. So, hey, why not trust a team with arguably the most pros? Maybe Colorado has the most pros on their team, but either way, just an amazing performance. Let's go back to Friday night too, before we get too far removed from it. How about the Miami performance against Virginia Tech? Now, we had told you that Virginia Tech had to do a bunch of different things to pull the upset, and they did not necessarily succeed in all those things. Now, they had some turnovers. I did not think Cam Ward played a smart football game. I thought he made a bunch of mistakes, got a little too aggressive, was sloppy with some of his fundamentals, led to a couple turnovers. But to come down to the end like that, and I think the officials got it right, by the way. I think the officials got it right on the Hail Mary. People have said, well, they shouldn't have called it a touchdown on the field. I don't disagree. I thought it should not have been called a touchdown on the field. Guys are laying out of bounds and the ball's still moving. So I think they messed up the on-field protocols, but the replay at the end, was there significant video evidence to, beyond all doubt, to overturn the call? I don't know. I don't know about that. The ball was moving to me. Guys were out of bounds and touching the football, and the ball was moving. So to me, it felt like it was incomplete from the jump. But Miami survived a bit of a scare. That was far too close for comfort. I thought the technique on the Hail Mary was not good. Guys trying to intercept the pass as opposed to trying to knock it down. But either way, they survived the scare. And Miami's got to go back to the drawing board because defensively, that was nowhere near where it needed to be at all. Defensively, there were a lot of challenges. A couple other things here in the game. When you look at Arch Manning and the Texas performance, it was not ideal, but there were some great moments. And here's the thing with Arch Manning. I think people just assume he's going to come out and look like Peyton or Eli. It's not likely. There's an evolution that quarterbacks have to make. And as a young player, as a guy that has not played a ton of football, there's going to be really high highs and really low lows. That's the way things go as a young player. Now, for Arch, I don't feel like the lows are that low. I actually feel like his lows are a little better than most, but the highs are outstanding. And there were a couple of great moments, great throws, but for the most part, it was not a clinic offensively whatsoever. So all that being said, Arch is about exactly where you would expect it to be because he is still a young player that's figuring things out, and you got to feel good about his prospects moving forward. But at this point, he's still a work in progress. Ohio State rolls. Jeremiah Smith, amazing. Him and Ryan Williams, the fact that those guys are both freshmen is insane. Absolutely insane. Oregon handles their business against UCLA. Penn State, in what was a defensive slugfest against Illinois, they pull away there in the second half after a little bit of a slow start. Man, both defenses in that Illinois-Penn State game played really, really well. Michigan handles their business against Minnesota in a game that got close at the end. Felt like Michigan was in full control only until they weren't. Like I said, kind of a theme of the day. 3 touchdowns there in the fourth quarter for Minnesota made that game a lot more competitive than one once thought. USC, not a clinic by any stretch, kind of an up and down, topsy-turvy performance, but 28 unanswered points there in the second half led to them pulling away from Wisconsin. Credit to Wisconsin, they hung in there, they battled, but that was far from comfortable there if you watch the first, 35, 36 minutes of the game. Notre Dame and Louisville. Notre Dame held off there at the end. I thought the performance after Louisville cut it to 7 there in the second half to get aggressive and to throw the football down the field the way they did, to be and create a couple of big plays and response there in the fourth quarter was massive. Now, third quarter, less than ideal for both teams offensively. Notre Dame, great surge there early on, forcing a couple of mistakes from Louisville, and all of a sudden capitalizing en route to a 21-7 lead there after 1. But the fourth quarter performance in Notre Dame, I think, jump-starting their engine with aggressiveness was something that I was really proud of and impressed by. I think Tyler Shoug's a really good player, by the way. I think this Louisville team is not going anywhere. That was tough circumstances to have to go and try to play in a situation like that. But either way, Notre Dame, it feels like they're back. Louisville feels like they're not going anywhere. So that's one of those weird games where you kind of felt pretty good about both teams. Clemson handles their business in convincing fashion against Stanford. Stanford a week removed from beating Cuse on the road. Their travel schedule's been hectic and chaotic, I must say. And then finally, before we kind of shut down, Oklahoma. Oklahoma felt like they were done, right? Felt like there was no chance. They were down 21-10. The offense hadn't done anything. Their first drive of the game was good. After that, that was leaving a lot to be desired in their first SEC road game. And you listen, actually, and like I said, most of my day yesterday was spent listening to games. So I'm listening to Toby Rowland and Gabe Eichert and Teddy Lehman, the 3 guys that are a part of the broadcast there for Oklahoma. And they continue to talk about how hostile this is another level. We've never seen anything so hostile. We've never been in an environment that's this loud, that's this chaotic, that's this angry. The vitriol that they were getting in one particular end zone in particular was a lot. But that was incredible. And the game-winning touchdown, the game-saving play, all-out blitz, you knew exactly what Peyton Thorne was going to do. He drops back, buys a little time because the guy on the right is unblocked, and they drop right into it. That was coaching. That's why you hire Brent Venables. That's why you want Brent Venables running your show, because he knew not just that would force the ball out of Peyton Thorne's hands quickly, but he knew exactly where it was going to go based on the formation and based on Hugh Freeze's tendencies. So overload the protection, free runner off the right, drop a guy out underneath the outlet, interception to the house, and then they're cooking with gas the rest of the way. So crazy disappointing outcome for Auburn, because it felt like for a vast majority of the game you were playing better than the opposition, but you had a couple key mistakes and a couple big moments for the Sooners, and they flip the game on its head and they steal one there in Jordan-Hare, 27-21. Just an awesome game. Really, really a cool setting, and that's why you joined the SEC, Oklahoma. That's why you joined it. So great win. Great job by Coach Venables. Great job by their defensive staff making the play there down the stretch and understanding and reading tendencies. That'll do it for us here at Always College Football. Like, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. If we did not talk about your game, know that we will, okay? Check back with us tomorrow. I'm about to dive into the tape. I'm about to go and watch a million games. I'm going to spend the whole day studying and watching and analyzing. So check back with us tomorrow for the 10 things we've learned, because there will be takeaways on the games that we discussed, and then we'll go a layer deeper. So for all of us here at Always College Football, Mark, Jake, Jack, the other Jack, I'm Greg. We hope you have an amazing day. And remember, it's always college football.
Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.